But the last thing we're going to talk about here on the podcast is they have an insider article on ESPN ranking the best and brightest futures at the quarterback position. Me and Brandon are just going to talk about some of the teams that we think have the best and brightest quarterbacks, which teams we're going to see the best quarterbacks come from. And number one at the top, you love him just as much as your Crimson Tide. Sean of the Fast Break and everything else here at MVP, our social media guy, is a huge Fighting Irish fan. Notre Dame, they've probably got the brightest future, right? Deshaun Kaiser or Malik Zaire as your starters this year. Kaiser could stay around. If you bench him, he could stay around for next year. So you could have Zaire, Kaiser. Then you have Wimbush, who's returning to the depth chart. You're adding Ian Brook. And next season, as a freshman, you're going to get the 131st overall ESPN recruit coming into your quarterback class.
I think the ones that you really take a look at least for me right now, it's Notre Dame. And Notre Dame really is in an interesting spot because of both the quarterbacks that they have.
Zaire and Kaiser?
They both have really good talent. Both of them do. And Malik Zaire, he goes down early with injury, but, he had already been showing some good stuff. Kaiser, though, came in, and I really think he had a pretty darn good season. I really do. I think that there's obviously plenty of things that he can work on, do better, but I think that it was a really good season overall for him.
Well, and I mean, the thing with whenever I think of Deshaun Kaiser, I think back to that Virginia game because the lasting memory, and I hate if you're new to the Primetime Podcast, I hate the Fighting Irish. Like, out of sports teams I hate, it's the Yankees, and then right below them, not by much, is the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I hate the Fighting Irish. However, you say Deshaun Kaiser, I think, boom, throw to Will Fuller in the corner of the end zone. That one where it was like the deep throw, I believe there was a little bit of a scramble beforehand, and Kaiser just said, fuck it, and let it chuck. And then Fuller had to extend and caught it near the corner of the end zone, maybe right as he crossed the line towards the sideline to win that game because Notre Dame almost lost that game at Virginia.
Yes, they did. Yes, that was week 2, wasn't it?
Week 2.
Yeah, week 2. I remember watching
September 12th on NBC.
Yep, absolutely. There's hardly any Notre Dame games that aren't on NBC. But I remember watching that game and how close it was, but some huge throws, but also some really good plays by Will Fuller, who made some really, like you just said, some great adjustments to do it. But I really think that in just last season, you have so much room to grow and get better. It's going to be a really good quarterback competition, I think, over the summer.
You know who else has got a pretty good quarterback class just for the future now is Clemson. They've got Deshaun Watson this year. Deshaun Watson could technically stay for a senior year, but let's be honest, he probably won't, especially if he's got first-round grades. I don't have the same Andrew Luck kind of I'm going to stay and get my degree from Deshaun Watson like we saw in Andrew Luck, but you look behind him, they got a sophomore behind him and Kelly Bryant, so that's a guy who could possibly play for you for 2 years. And then I look at the 2017 commitments that they've got, Hunter Johnson and Chase Bryce. And you may be saying, well, Ricky, who the fuck are those guys? I'll be honest, I don't really know.
He doesn't know who they are either.
But the one thing that I do look at with recruits is when you have Johnson, who's the number 2 quarterback pocket passer, and Bryce, who's the number 11th ranked quarterback pocket passer in the ESPN class, that's pretty damn good, man. That's pretty damn good.
It is pretty darn good. I guess another thing, too, is that you want to look at them. How is their future going to be not only in college, but then, looking at them going to the NFL? Which one of these guys do you think will be the best NFL fit when it comes to that time?
Talking about Hunter Johnson and Chase Bryce?
No, I mean I'm talking about Watson. I'm talking about.
Okay, I'm like, whoa, man, we're taking high school seniors and talking about how they're going to.
No. Going back to the ones in college now.
Okay.
Come on, stick with me here,
Richard.
I
was getting scared for a second. I was like, I don't know where Hunter's going to go.
No,
maybe the Alaskan Eskimos, the new expansion team for the NFL, by the time he gets out of college. No, too much. They're going to get a team in London before Alaska. I'm sorry.
They'll get a team in Mexico before they get a team in Alaska.
But go on, Brandon.
No, like Deshaun Watson. So right now he's a very mobile quarterback.
He's my number one pick.
Do we see him as being the next Russell Wilson? Better than Russell Wilson? I mean, like that's kind of what I'm thinking. Obviously, there's some who have bright futures in college, but we have seen so many with bright futures in college. But then he just doesn't do anything in the NFL.
You say mobile quarterback, and I know Deshaun Watson is nothing. Like, I know he's not this player, but I just think to myself, I just go, oh, please don't be the next RG3. Don't be the next RG3.
But the thing is, though, is that I say mobile quarterback, but Russell Wilson's a mobile quarterback.
Yeah, but I don't think Deshaun Watson, to me, to be Russell Wilson, you cannot be a first-round pick. To be the next Russell Wilson, can't be a first-round pick. You have to be that kind of player that gets drafted in the second or below, more the second, because that's where Russell Wilson got drafted, and then come on to stardom. Just like with 6th-round draft picks that make it big in the NFL, we call them Tom Brady's, because that's what Tom Brady did. I think to be a Russell Wilson, you can't be drafted in the first round. He's in a club that first-rounders can't get into. And Deshaun Watson is going to be a top 3 pick. He's most likely going to be the number 1 overall pick because RG3 is not going to work. Cody Kessler is going to be too far. The Browns are going to have the first overall pick because the Eagles suck. And then they're going to take Deshaun Watson number 1. That's where I'm sitting right now. This could all change, but that's what I see.
It could? I thought it was set in stone.
Well, this is what I see looking into my crystal ball. But one last team we got to talk about is Baylor. They're a team that also, I mean, they're kind of, to me, in the same boat of Notre Dame this year. Who do they start? Do you go with the guy who was riding the ship for Briles early in Russell, or the guy who came in later for him in Stidham?
I think you got to go with Russell. If Russell's healthy, you stick Russell. I mean, Stidham did well, but if there's no reason to bench your starting quarterback, you don't do it.
And I mean, they've too got Russell, who's a senior. Stidham comes in, he's a sophomore this year, so he's got 2 more years after this one. Then arriving on the depth chart this year, the 10th overall quarterback from the 2016 draft class, and then they already have a commitment for 2017 who will come in next year in Kellen Mound, who's the 2nd top quarterback. He's dual threat, though. So they'll have Zach Smith, who's a pocket passer, Mound, who's a dual threat. Stidham, I would say he's kind of the in the middle, and then Russell, of course, you're only getting Russell for this year, but they're just another team that it always seems like there's Baylor quarterback, and then who's the next one coming in? You have RG3. Then you got Bryce Petty. Now you got Seth Russell. Next will be Stidham. Then we could see Smith and Mound, and it just feels like that lineage just keeps going.
But that's how some teams are. I mean, some teams, you never fall off the quarterback position. Mm-hmm. Some teams are always fighting to find one, and some teams never fall off. They can't get rid of them. So, but I think that's good. I mean, that's a good position to be in. And what's actually nice, though, for Baylor is since Russell went down last year, they were able to find out what they have in Stidham, and I think they were happy with it. I mean, he's a freshman playing, and I think that you've got to be very happy with what you saw. I mean, he gave you pretty good numbers while he was in there. I was impressed with what I saw just as a freshman. And you get another year to kind of sit behind Russell and see what happens, get into a couple of games in garbage time. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So I think Stidham has a very bright future, and I think that we will just see what Seth Russell's able to do this year, hopefully avoiding any injury.
Got one last thing before I do my wrap-up shop here for the podcast. There's one team on this list that under 2016 starter, it says TBD. and that's Georgia. If you are Kirby Smart in Athens, do you go with Grayson Lambert or Bryce Ramsey? Who you going with if you're Kirby Smart in Georgia?
I think you go with Lambert. I mean, that's just me.
Go with the senior over the junior?
I think you go with the senior. I think you go with the senior, and you at the end of the day, you go with the senior to start, but at the end of the day, you go with the one who's going to produce for you. In the summer, if there's a quarterback battle, competition, there will be. Whoever wins should be the one.
And it's funny that you say that because the writer of this article on ESPN says they've got a freshman coming in, the number one pocket passer from this past recruiting class in Jacob Eason. And he even says, he goes, first thing he writes, at some point, and probably pretty soon, Eason is going to overtake Lambert for that starting job. And even in the caption of the picture of Eason, it says, don't be surprised if Jacob Eason gets the nod as Georgia's starter as a true freshman. So that's something to look at if you're a Bulldog fan. Do you go with the senior, go with the junior, or fuck it, let's throw the true freshman in there right away in the SEC?
Well, the one that you go with is, yes, you can go with the senior and you can take the seniority and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, you go with the one that you think is going to give you the best chance to win. It really doesn't matter because it's not about pleasing people. It's about winning games.
It's about winning games. That's all you got to do. But that's going to do it for the Primetime Podcast this week. I want to thank you guys for listening. If you're on SoundCloud, go ahead, hit that heart, that repost button. If you're on YouTube, go ahead, hit that like and subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Ricky Widmer. Brandon is at young_swan19. Most Valuable Podcast is at Most Valuable Pod. We're on Snapchat with the same name. But what I want you guys to do specifically is go down below in the description. Check out our Patreon page. If you listen to the podcast each and every week and you love what you hear, go down, check out the Patreon page. You love it, you support us. That's a way for you to support us even more to make sure that we can bring you guys the ideas and the bigger, better things that we have planned for you guys, and we have some cool rewards for you guys. So check that out down below, please, if it's one thing you do today for us. But thank you for checking out this podcast, and as always, have a good day, everybody.
Thank you for listening to this MVP podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Most Valuable Pod for more great podcasts.